Lee at Iridium. Hope everyone's doing all right. And I've got my mate Mark Cloer with me today. How you doing, mate?
Hey, what's up, brother? You doing all right?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm really good. So Mark reached out to me. He was thinking about what to do next. And he's been mentioned a couple of times, actually. Do a W.A.S.P. How about a W.A.S.P? Something to do with them. So maybe like a top 10 or whatever. But we actually came up with a few more than a top 10. Mark's a huge fan of W.A.S.P. So I was a huge fan of W.A.S.P, just to tell you a little background on myself. So in the 80s, their first few albums, absolutely loved them. And like many bands, myself, sort of left W.A.S.P through that period, probably after, I'd say from the Crimson Idol onwards. So quite early on in their career. Crimson Idol was 92. A lot of bands I did in the 90s left them. You know, I was into other types of heavy music, and then so with this list, some of it was like I could just choose which songs I knew as soon as I saw the title, and some I literally had to listen to it first time, and some I had to sort of give myself a little reminder. So I might get a few eyebrows raised, especially from you, Mark, on this one. I don't know.
Right.
So some of this, like a lot of my list, like I said, a first time listen. So these are the songs that grabbed me straight away. And there are some here that I've actually loved. I must say, though, I'm quite impressed with the stuff, you know, most of it. I'd say there was a bit of a dip in form, middle sort of section. And then the last couple of albums have been really good. And his voice really hasn't changed at all.
Right.
I must say, I was thinking about this, though, as I was listening to a lot of the songs, a lot of them sound similar.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's also, but I was thinking to myself, Blackie Lawless's voice is it's got so much character. You know exactly, it's him straight away, don't you?
Nobody sounds like he is.
No, so if he went and sang in someone else's band, would it sound like W.A.S.P? That's what I'm saying. So a lot of it is his voice. As soon as you hear it, you just, you know, I think it's just, they go hand in hand. The music goes hand in hand with the voice, and you sort of think they sound similar. I think some songs do. They sort of rehashed some songs and changed them slightly.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard about 4 Wild Childs. I'm sure I have through the years.
Yeah.
But some really good material. So, yeah, the 16 is the number we came up with in the end. I think that was your fault, really, Mark.
Yeah.
Because Mark's a huge fan, so he probably found it harder to choose 10 than I did.
Right.
Although I had a lot more than 10. I had a few honourable mentions. So I've sort of changed my honourable mentions into the actual list. So, are you ready to go then, mate, with our 16? Okay, so 16, mate. Up you go.
Well, first off, I just want to mention that we were in that video we did about our fantasy bands. We were talking about great songwriters.
Mm.
I've got to include Blackie in that.
Mm.
He's a very complex individual. Fans that only know him back from the early days of W.A.S.P think it was just mindless shock rock. But as time went on, I think starting around the time of Headless Children, he started to get a lot deeper in his thinking and in his lyric writing, his subject matter for the song. The early stuff was pretty much the, you know, chasing ass, drinking beer, devil worship kind of vibe, you know, that you would expect of the shock rock genre back then. But I think he just got tired of that. Blackie he's always been a deep thinker. To look at him, you know, with his side teeth and all that, you would think he's just a moron, but he's a very intelligent person, and that translates to his songwriting. A lot of the songs later in the catalog, they're very deep and they really make you think. And I think that was his intention, was to get in your head, sometimes in a positive way, sometimes in a negative way. make you really think about what you're listening to. And he's one of them I would love. He's talked about it in the past, but he's never actually done it. I would love for him to write an autobiography. I would just be fascinated to read his whole life story. He's very complex. Anyway, just wanted to get that out there.
Oh, I think you're right, man. As I was listening, also as I was listening to a lot of these albums, I was shocked at especially the last couple.
Yeah.
You know how good they were. You know, musically, lyrically. I was obviously just skipping over a lot of these songs, but you know, if you think they're just a brainless, load of, especially Blackie, you know, it's just definite. You couldn't go further wrong. And an absolutely great voice that he's kept.
A lot of people kind of left him after Chris Holmes left because he was kind of the quintessential W.A.S.P guitarist. But every guitarist they've had after Chris has just been amazing. They've never had a bad guitarist. One of the things that stands out in most of their songs, they always have an incredible solo. It doesn't matter who the guitarist is in the band at that time. They always go that extra mile to do a blazing solo. And you mentioned some of the songs sound kind of samey. I do agree with that. The solos kind of set them apart to me. Each solo has its own identity, so to speak. But I think they excel at those mid-paced, moody kind of songs. And my list, as you'll see as we get into it here, is that's a large part of my list. Is the more mid.
And they can also write a brilliant ballad or ballad. Man.
Yeah. His voice, he's like you said, he's got a very, very unique voice that I've never heard anybody even try to duplicate. But he sounds equally good on the harder, more evil sounding stuff. But like you said, they've done some amazing ballads, and his voice fits it all.
Without a doubt, mate.
Underrated vocalist.
Yep.
Anyway, I digress.
No, definitely good there, mate. Yeah, totally agree with that.
My number 16, kind of an odd track, I guess, comes off the Live and the Raw album. It's a new track for that album that they never had a studio version of. It's called Harder, Faster. And it is a fast-paced song, and it was during that time where their music was sexually driven. It was kind of, I think it was aimed toward the PMRC, at the time was trying to ban music and force the labels and all that crap we're doing back then. And I think it was aimed toward them. But anyway, very fast-paced song that they never had a studio version of. It only appeared on that live album. I really, really like it.
What year did that one come out, mate? Do you know about?
I didn't write it down. I think it was 88, somewhere along in there.
See, I mean,
after the Electric Circus.
Yeah. See, I mean, I know we talk about production quite a bit, and I think some of those, even after the first album, some of their production was a bit muddy.
Yeah.
But I heard a few live videos. I've seen a few, and it's sort of better.
Yeah.
It seems a lot brighter. I don't know what happened to their production for a couple of albums, but that's just my opinion. But there you go. So, right, my number 16. So remember, don't kill me. All right, these are just first times. This is the first time listen, and this one just grabbed me on the whole album, to tell you the truth. Set it apart. I don't know why it's like this one, and it's Revengeance off of Dying for the World.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, probably that album is the one. I mean, I made an initial list up of, my list went from quite big to getting it smaller. That's the only one I actually had off of that album as well. So, I mean, that was it, 2002, maybe not the best period for W.A.S.P, I don't know, but Revengeance was a good track, sort of held back to the older sort of stuff for me.
Yeah.
So that's my number 16, mate.
Yeah, that album was was his reaction to the 9/11 bombing. That whole album was kind of themed toward revenge. He's a New Yorker. He was born and bred in New York, and seeing the Trade Center come down affected him a lot. And, that whole album.
Man, it affected me a lot, and I live in the UK, and it just, you know what I mean? It did me as well.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
I don't know where time goes.
No. Anyway, we're not going to die yet. Let's get this film out of the way first.
All right. My number 15 comes off with Unholy Terror. I mentioned this about a particular Sabbath song, but this is listed as two songs, but they really need to be played together. Unholy Terror and Charisma. This album came out in 2001, by the way. Song is basically based on corruption of world leaders, religious leaders, TV evangelists that brainwash their followers. Could cover a lot of bases with the lyrics there, but that's the way I interpret it. Unholy Terror is the slow build up to the hard rocker Charisma when it kicks in. Great song. Only time I actually saw W.A.S.P was on this tour, and it was about a week before the 9/11 attack. Early to mid September. Great album.
Cool. Okay, then, mate, my number 15 is Babylon's Burning. So I think this is cool. I like the galloping riffs in this, man. They do that quite a bit, don't they, W.A.S.P? They have a gallop now and again. You know, not as much as some bands, but what year was that, Babylon's Burn? I've got it written down here. 2009, so a more recent one. So yeah, I mean, I think that was, you know, on first listen, them last couple of albums, man, have been great. Blackie turned to Christianity at this stage.
Yeah, I think it actually became evident around that time. Some of his lyrics were pointing to that direction without being, you know, overtly. They'll never be Striker.
No.
And I don't consider a lot of people say, well, W.A.S.P is now a Christian band. I don't really consider W.A.S.P a Christian band because I don't know what the other three band members' beliefs are. And Blackie definitely, he's sliding some of that in, but he's not, you know, it's usually on one track on the album that he makes it kind of obvious. The rest of them are just more traditional, you know, W.A.S.P style.
So they're Christians in a metal band, maybe, rather than a Christian band. Yeah, I get it.
And it's kind of hard to believe when you.
Yeah.
a lot of people still think it's a gimmick. I don't think it's a gimmick because I don't really think he's doing himself any favors by professing that. Because a lot of people have walked away because of his, you know, newfound belief. I don't want to say newfound because he claims he was brought up a Christian, but just drifted away from it for a lot of years. And I do think I keep going back to the 9/11 bombings, but I think that probably was a big turning point in his life and his spiritual journey. Seems like after that is when the switch came on and he started, you know, rethinking his life, I guess, so to speak. I give him props for it. You know, he doesn't back down for it, but he's not trying to shove it down anybody's throat. So, you know.
No, things like that, man. Things like that in life, don't they? They make you make decisions, you know, and change your life altogether. But yeah, that's a good choice, though, mate.
All right. So my number 14. Actually comes off of the KFD album, 1997. Definitely one of the more controversial This album was his reaction to the popularity that Marilyn Manson had at the time. He actually said in an interview that he was going to out Manson Marilyn Manson. He kind of took offense that Manson came in and, you know, was this kind of new kid on the block. And he wanted his, you know, he was one of the older school shock rockers that I don't think he thought they got enough recognition earlier in their career. So he decided to turn it up a notch. And this was a very industrial sounding album, which was popular at the time. Some of the subject matter on this album is very, very, well, all the subject matter on this album is very dark.
I was going to say, perhaps you should have changed perhaps it should have been KDF to make it even more controversial.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, I hadn't actually mentioned my song yet, but the song I picked is My Torture Dies. That's my favorite on the album. It's basically about being suicidal. This whole album, if somebody was slightly unhinged and listened to this album in the right mood, it could probably make them do very bad things. Anyway, My Tortured Eyes is a very doomy, depressing song, but I love the way it sounds.
There was a lot of that industrial. Oh man, I think back now, some of that music, you know, and I was pulled in, not by so much the industrial stuff, but, you know, I was at a stage then in them 2000s where you know, some of the new metal stuff and all that. Man, and now I just don't listen to, I think the odd band now. Yeah. You know, one band I actually listen to in the new metal, that's Deftones probably. Okay. That's probably about it, you know, and just shows you, doesn't it, how the older music, the stuff that we love, comes back, doesn't it? And it doesn't go.
It looked very well. Yeah. But Blackie did a lot of stuff on this tour that I bet he wishes he could take back. I'm not, even as a Christian, I'm not easily offended, but he actually did a simulated, for lack of better terms, he raped a nun on stage the tour during his theatrical, you know, gonna make Manson look tame kind of idea.
Yeah, that could be a regret right now.
I doubt that's something he's proud of, and like I said, I'm not easily offended, but there is an old grainy video you can find on YouTube showing it, and it's pretty bad. I mean, I'd say if he was trying to outdo Manson, I'd say he probably accomplished his mission on that. Yeah, he probably went a little bit too far on that one.
Yeah, maybe, mate.
It's all art, you know.
Yeah, that's how you get away with it. He definitely wouldn't get away with it now.
No.
You know what I mean? Okay then, mate. My next one's off the Dominator album, and this is only one track I've got for this as well. So that's the song Mercy.
Yeah, great song. Yeah.
So yeah, this bit like the other one, like I said, very return to the old. This sounds like something off the first couple of albums. Great song. Yeah, like I said, the only one. In fact, I did say that I only picked one off some of these albums. There's a lot of albums I've got none off, to tell you the truth. Okay. So I mean, that was off of Dominator, which was 2007. So yeah, I think, like, to tell you the truth, from this stage onwards, I think they've shown a big improvement in their sound again. Yeah. So a lot of energy, but from that first album, you know, that had a great energy in it, and they seem to have got that back again. So that's my number 14, mate. Cool. I'm not chosen any bad ones yet, have I?
No. No. My number 13, and I hate to rank this one so far down because it's an awesome song, but Wild Child from Last Command. I'm a wild child, come and love me, I want you. 1985. Only reason I rank it down is just because it's probably their signature song.
Mm.
You know, not that I ever hear Wasp on the radio, but it's probably the most well-known Wasp song. And as Wasp goes, it's probably a little bit overplayed.
Mm.
You know, if you listen to some of the satellite radio shows, they do play that song quite a bit. I don't hear it on traditional corporate radio, but anyway, they played it a good bit back in MTV back in the days. And every live recording I've ever heard, of course, they do it.
Yeah.
Great song, just a little bit overexposed compared to some of the deeper cuts.
Man, I saw that video. I can't remember how many times I've seen that video back in the day. Good video, though. Great video.
Love the song. I do love the song.
It is a good song. We'll go on to that later. Right. Okay, mate. My number 13 is all the way back to the beginning, 1984 debut album, and Tormentor.
Yeah.
Man, love it. Absolutely love this song. Really heavy. Got that, like you said, they do the mid pace very well, don't they?
Yeah.
I love that album. For me, it's probably, I'm going to listen to it now, the newer stuff now. They may actually become my favourite albums, but I think out of the old stuff, that first album had so much energy in it.
Yeah.
You know, it sounded loud. It sounded loud and raw. And
yeah, they were very hungry at that time.
Obviously. Yeah.
And at that time, I think it was pretty much a total band effort. You know, at even starting with the second album, it really became the Blackie Lawless band.
Yeah.
You know, which is why Randy Piper left early on, and I think Tony Richards, the drummer, you know, they saw the writing on the wall very early that Blackie was taking that band over, and it was becoming basically his project, and they were basically going to be the supporting cast, so to speak.
Great song, man. Tormentor. That's my number 13.
All right. My number 12, kind of an odd one. It's actually one of the bonus tracks from Headless Children, which came out in 1989. The reissue came out, I think it was in 97, and they tacked on 3 or 4 bonus tracks and some live material at the end of it. And anyway, Lake of Fools wasn't on the actual original release, but one of the better songs they've ever done. I don't know why they didn't include it on the finished album, but it was basically a B-side or bonus track or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's better than a lot of the stuff that made the album.
I think that was sort of, for me, that was a bit of an improvement album on the album before, Inside the Electric Circus.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. It's a good one though, mate. But my next one's off that album as well. And a bit of a ballad, bit of a well-known one, I suppose, Forever Free.
Yeah.
Love this, man. Love that song. Brings back a lot of memories, that one. You know, that was all over MTV at the time. Great track. Like I said, they can do ballads really well, you know. And
I think that was the first venture into the ballad. Well, I don't know. Some people would say "Sleeping in the Fire" from the early album. You know, it's definitely a slow song, but the subject matter, I don't know if you want to consider it a ballad or not.
I know what you mean. It's more the speed of it. Slower songs, but heavy, aren't they? Yeah. Most of it. But Forever Free is definitely a ballad.
That's definitely a ballad or a power ballad. I know you love that.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great song, though, man. That's my number 12, mate. Forever Free.
Right. My number 11, you just mentioned Mercy.
Oh, right.
Combinator.
Nice.
2007. Yeah, I love that song. It's a faster pace. Kind of harkens back, like you said, to the earlier stuff. Doug Blair, amazing guitarist. Again, they've never had a bad guitarist. All their guitarists have a little. I don't know if they're trying to duplicate the Chris Holmes sound or not, but they make it sound like W.A.S.P. You know, even though Chris isn't there anymore. Yeah. Anyway, I love that song.
Have you heard Chris Holmes solo stuff?
I've heard, yeah, I've seen on MTV. I haven't bought any of it.
He needs to get a singer, man. He needs to get a singer.
Yeah, I agree. You want to talk about raw? That's some raw shit right there.
Man, just get a singer, man. Just get one.
I was just gonna say, it sounded like he recorded it in his bathroom.
Oh no, man. Oh, okay then, mate. My number 11. LOVE. All I need's my love machine. I love this song, man. So, I mean, I was thinking about getting it higher, but I do love it. I love Love Machine, man. It's a great song, really good fun. Do you know what I mean? His voice is just brilliant on this song.
Yeah.
You know, over those sort of pounding sort of where the guitars die down and it's just the drums and him and the bit of the bass. Brilliant. Love Machine's my number 11, man. I think it was a single.
That's another. I said Wild Child was their signature song. That's another one that's very well known as far as W.A.S.P goes. One of their signature songs for sure.
I love it. It's fun. It's good fun, man. Okay.
Let's see. I'm up to my number 10. Comes off of Still Not Black Enough. Skinwalker. This came out in 1995. There's actually two versions of this album. The original version was, I think it was a Japanese release, and it was only available as an import at the time when it came out. And being the huge W.A.S.P fan I was and still am, I ordered the high dollar import. I don't remember how much it was, but two to three times more than what a regular CD should have cost at this time. I ordered it. And a couple of years later, I was talking to somebody, they mentioned this song, Skinwalker, off of Still Not Black Enough. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, I've got Still Not Black Enough, but I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, come to find out, they later, when they issued it in America, they added a couple of new songs, and then they had some covers that they alternated between the two releases. So anyway, I ended up buying both of them. They've got a lot of the same songs, but there are a couple of different songs on each one. But anyway, Skinwalker. Skinwalker in Native American folklore is a creature that can change its identity.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
I think I might have seen a film about that once.
Yeah. I think the lyrics though are more about somebody with bipolar or split personality, having the multiple identities. Anyway, good play on words, the title and the lyrics of the song. Like I said, Blackie he's a wordsmith, very clever the way he writes lyrics to a title.
Man, I wish bands wouldn't keep bringing out. Like, should have put all the songs on it first of all, man. It costs people a fortune, doesn't it? All bands. I don't just mean W.A.S.P. I mean, there's some bands. I mean, how many times has Heaven and Hell been released?
Yeah, really.
Going off the subject a bit, but God, I just think, Anyway. Okay, so I did mention this album already, but I think it was a bit of a letdown for me at the time, and that's off the Inside the Electric Circus album, 86. I don't know, I just think the production was really poor as well, and they sort of already, for them, it was like they was running out of ideas a bit for me, even though they came back with some great albums later. But the song that stood out to me, it always has been, is I'm Alive.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Another galloping song, I think they're really cool at that. But the album in general I wasn't happy with, but I'm Alive is a outstanding track, really good track.
I agree. From the early output, that's definitely my least favorite. At the time when it came out, I thought it was cool, but some things just over time don't age well, they don't hold up well. When you listen to it with 16, 17-year-old ears, sometimes it deceives you how good it is or it isn't.
Definitely.
And then when you listen to it 20 years later, sometimes you see it as a better album, but a lot of times you see it for what it really is. Okay,
Yep.
that's kind of weak compared to, what was before and what came after.
Definitely, mate. Okay. I don't know what number we're at.
All right, 9. I'm going back to Headless Children again. Another one of the bonus tracks. For whom the bell tolls, and this is not the same song. Has nothing to do with the Metallica song. But another great song that, for whatever reason, they didn't use on the actual album. But another one of those mid-paced songs that they do so well.
They do, mate. Well, I'm quite happy. My next one is actually one you've chosen already, and this is a first time listen for me. So I didn't actually put it as the 2 tracks, but Charisma is my number 9.
Yeah.
Off of Unholy Terror. Really good groove. It sort of had that, I've written down here, sort of had that heaven and hell pace. That sort of.
Yeah, that's all of it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so really stood out to me, Charisma. The only one that actually stood out to me fully for the list off of Unholy Terror. But a great song. Absolutely great song.
Yeah, I like that. Well, like I said, though, if you listen to Charisma, it kicks in immediately, like something was cut off of the front. If you listen to Unholy Terror, it just, like I said with the Sabbath song, sounds like somebody cut the tape. They bleed into each other so well. Even though they're 2 different songs, to get the full effect, they need to be listened to together.
Okay, but number 8, I think.
Going back to Last Command, Fistful of Diamonds.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the coolest songs they've ever done. I love the way it starts off with that stock market report or whatever it was. The guy's reading the Dow Jones report for the day or whatever, and then that song kicks in. Last Command is actually my favorite W.A.S.P. album as a whole. That's one of the standouts for me.
I think it used to be my favorite. It did at the time when it came out. It was my favorite, and then over time, I like the debut better. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just think it had a bit more energy to it. But I did love that Last Command is absolutely fantastic album. Okay, mate. My number 8 is off a more recent one, off of Babylon again, and it's Into the Fire. So sort of weird. So this one sort of had a more modern feel to it, but it still's got that W.A.S.P. You still know it's W.A.S.P, but more of a sort of slower song again, sort of ballad. But great song, man. Absolutely great. I'm really impressed with these last 2 or 3 albums though. So
they don't get hadn't had a lot of publicity for their recent albums. But once you delve into them, like you said, you find some gems in there that you never would have known about unless you took the plunge and bought the album or downloaded or whatever you do these days. Obviously, I still buy them. But I think
cheapskate, mate.
Strong material over the last 2 decades now.
Okay, number 7, mate.
All right, I sound like a broken record, but my number 7 is one of the third bonus track from Headless Children. This one's called Warcraft. It just blows my mind. Those 3 songs, and they also did a cover of Locomotive Breath. That was also one of the bonus tracks. It was a great cover of that song. But these 3 bonus tracks I picked, I love these songs, every one of them. They should have been on the final album, but for whatever reason they didn't include them. But I'm really glad they at least released them on the reissue.
It's weird, isn't it, what bands see?
Heard them, needed to hear them. They're great songs.
It's weird, isn't it, what the bands see that the fans don't. Strange. Good choice, though, mate. So, I actually thought I'd only had one off of Dominator, but I didn't. I also had Take Me Up. That's my number 7. I love the little quiet beginning. Then again, the galloping sort of mid-pace sort of song. Sort of real epic feel to this one. Love it, man. Take Me Up really stood out as well. Well, you can tell number 7 on my list, and over a lot of these earlier songs. So Have a great song, man, off a Dominator. So them last 3 albums, man. Yeah, I think that before that was the end of the Neon God, wasn't it? Part 1 and 2. I think before, you know, them and that few albums before were their bad period, if you like.
Yeah, I didn't. The 2 Neon God albums really didn't do anything for me. I think I've got one of them on my honorable mention that we'll get to here in a little bit. But I've listened to both of those albums multiple times trying to find something that resonates with me, and I don't know, they just didn't seem very inspired.
No. They looked at, though, as from W.A.S.P fans, as a bit of a classic, but I suppose it might be because they're a concept, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to recapture that, you know, that Crimson Idol magic. A lot of people consider Crimson Idol as
that's the one. Crimson
Idol album.
Yeah.
And he was trying to recapture that, but they didn't have near the I don't know what word I'm looking for, but weren't near as good as Crimson Idol by any means. I don't think so. Yeah. Somebody else might have a different opinion, but that's just mine.
Okay, mate. I think we're up to number 6.
Number 6, on my shirt, Golgotha, the title track.
Yeah.
This is by far the most blatant Christian lyric song he's done to date. People that have never heard it are absolutely shocked when they hear it and read the lyrics. You know, the same guy that could write something like Animal or KFD or Dirty Balls could write a song about the crucifixion of Christ. And it's actually sang from the perspective of the good thief that hung next to him. You know, as the story goes, he was crucified between 2 thieves. One of them mocked him and said, "Well, if you are what you say you are, come off of your cross and save us all." The good thief didn't ask to be saved from his fate. He just asked that Jesus remember him when he went to heaven. So it's sang from his perspective. But yeah, the lyrics of the song are very powerful. You know, whether you're a Christian or not, they're going to affect you in one way or another. And again, the solo Doug Blair tears into in this song. I mean, he's just amazing guitarist. I think my next 4 songs are all very similar in vibe, as you'll hear. But yeah, Golgotha, the most recent album that came out in 2015. I don't know what he's got up his sleeve next, but very good album.
I'm sort of, to tell you the truth, I mean, I'm doing the channel now. I think I'm waiting in anticipation now for new music from W.A.S.P, you know, even those last 2 albums. So, you know, there'll be a lot, I'll be listening a lot more intently, I suppose. So it's cool. Okay then, mate. Where am I at? Number 6, was it?
Yep, number 6.
Okay, so we talked about this, well, these sort of songs, and whether this is a ballad or not, I don't know. It's probably the closest you get to a ballad from them. But On the Last Command, Cries in the Night.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I just love this song. I just absolutely love it. It's really powerful, epic sort of sounding. Bit of a surprise, I suppose, back then. You know, when you was younger and you was W.A.S.P, you just expect them to rock out constantly. But very cool song indeed. Absolutely love it. Yeah, great song, man. Off of one of my favourite W.A.S.P albums.
Yeah,
or probably my second favourite W.A.S.P album. But
that's one of the deeper cuts off that album for sure. But yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah. Okay, number 5. Top 5, man.
Comes off Dying for the World, Hallowed Ground, 2002. This album had Daryl Roberts on guitar. This is the one song that I think this is where he started to let his newfound religion creep in. As I mentioned before, this song was based on the 9/11 bombings. I remember reading, I think it's in the liner notes of the album, when Blackie said he went back to the site of where the Trade Center stood. He said you could actually taste, he mentions in there, in the lyrics, about I have tasted hollow ground. He said as you stood there, you could just taste the destruction, for lack of a better, I don't know how to describe it. But in that song, he mentions God, he calls him Father. And that's the first inkling I had that there was a change in Blackie Lawless.
Yeah.
There was the previous albums, it was all not necessarily demonic or satanic, but slanted in that direction.
Oh, yeah.
And this was the first time that I remember hearing him sing about God, mentioning God in anything other than a negative light. Anyway, very powerful song. Again, just a blazing solo. Another one of the mid-paced songs that they do so well.
Great track, man. Great track. Well, I'm going right up to the last album now, mate. He's pronounced Golgotha, isn't it? So I've chosen Miss You off of that. So you can see where I'm sort of going with a lot of these W.A.S.P. I think they do these slower sort of songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a long song, I think, this one. That's 7 minutes and something. But, yeah, absolutely amazing. Really, really impressed with what I'm hearing, like, with these latest ones for sure. But, yeah, love it. I've put on here, it's an epic sort of ballad. Brilliant album, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Great sounding album as well. They've really got there with the production on that. Those last couple of albums really got some energy behind it, It just really does remind me. I know it's better production than the debut, but it's got that energy, like the hunger, I suppose. It's like he's sort of revitalized, if you like, I think, in the last couple of albums. A lot of people are missing out, I think, including myself, not realizing how good W.A.S.P are now, especially.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, he's getting up there in age. I mean, he's not as old as, some of our heroes, but he's got to be mid-60s by now, I would think. And this late in his career, he's got a spark under him now. Seems like he's really turning out some good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Even this late in the career. Yeah, I'm definitely anxious to see what they do next.
Same, mate. Same, definitely. Okay, number 4.
All right, number 4, off of Babylon, 2009, Godless Run. This is another one that, very obvious Christian overtones. This was basically his, how he tells the tale of how he was away from God for a long time, and after a lot of time, he's coming back to the fold, so to speak, and talks about amazing grace saved my life. Again, hearing those words come out of the mouth of Blackie Lawless, it's kind of mind-boggling, when you think about some of the stuff they sang in the past, from fuck like a beast to amazing grace saved my life. It's kind of mind-boggling, but
Cool album cover, that as well, man.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like, it's very cool. I mean, I remember like either watching Blackie on a motorbike or on a horse is quite cool, isn't it? You know what I mean? No, man, that's a brilliant choice. Okay. My number 4, you've mentioned it quite a while back, but it's Wild Child. Yeah, and I do agree actually with the amount of times this has been played. I do totally agree. But I love it. It's a brilliant song, brilliant video to go with it. Big part of me growing up, for sure. Probably my most played W.A.S.P song ever, for sure. But just love it. That opening little melody on the guitar.
Yeah, unmistakable.
On the motorbike on this one, wasn't he, I think, in the desert? I'm sure he was. I'm not sure though, but yeah, this is the one with what the cool guitars they had in this video as well. Like the skull and the I think it was Randy Piper had that really cool guitar on in this video.
I learned something just last night that I never knew about that song. As I was getting my list together, I was reading some of the liner notes, and again, my version of that album is the remastered version, and it's got a lot of historical notes in it. Blackie wrote that song, I think, prior to W.A.S.P, and offered it to Motley Crue.
Huh?
And according to the liner notes, Nikki Sixx turned it down because it was too high for Vince to sing. I thought that was very interesting. Can you imagine that song being sung by Motley Crue? I mean,
not really. They're like a rock and roll band, didn't they? More than, but I mean, I can't imagine that being too. He could sing quite high back then, couldn't he, Vince Neil?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was odd. I mean, that's such a quintessential W.A.S.P song. It's hard to imagine any other band putting that out.
Definitely, mate.
That's
definitely.
the story he gave there.
No, it's a great story as well. Yeah. Okay, mate. We're top three, aren't we?
Yeah. Let's see here. What have I got next? Back to Dominator. Where's my cover? Heaven's Hung in Black. Another, like I said, all these recent ones I've named are all very similar in that mid-tone or mid-tempo kind of vibe. They all have very heavy, deep lyrics. The title, Heaven's Hung in Black, Blackie took from a speech that Abraham Lincoln made on one of the night of one of the bloodiest battles of Gettysburg that had such a high casualty. Abraham Lincoln made a speech and said, "Surely tonight heaven is hung in black." So that's where the title came from. But the lyrics, he sings it from the perspective of a soldier who has died in Iraqistan, somewhere over there, and he's trying to get into heaven, and St. Peter is telling him heaven is full, heaven is hung in black. You'll have to come back at another time. So the lyrics of this song, part of it is being sang from the perspective of the soldier who's trying to get into heaven, and then the chorus is St. Peter telling him, "I'm sorry, I don't have room for you. The walls are bleeding, heaven's hung in black, there's just not room." Again, Blackie's lyrics get very deep.
And I think that's what people just are missing out on, isn't they? They don't.
Yeah.
I think people are shocked, especially I've heard a lot of good stuff about the last album, and I think that's where people are just really shocked. So, I go on social media too much, you know me, but I think people were like, you hear a lot of good things, and people are shocked at what they're hearing about how good it lyrically and musically they are. Yeah. Very underrated, I would say. Rated, obviously, back in the day,
right?
But forgotten about all these years from me as well. More guilt creeping in. There's so many bands I feel guilty about. It's unbelievable. Still, I've got the rest of my life to sort this out. So anyway, okay, I'm at number 3, and I.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 3 is, we actually spoke about this, I think, on our Great Openers show. I'm sure I did. I Want to Be Somebody.
I wanna be somebody,
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, this is energy. This is so much energy, heaviness. This is hunger, isn't it? This song. This is proper. Like, I just love the tempo. It's more, it's sort of, it's medium to fast, I suppose you could say this. But what a great riff going through this. Really noisy. Really, like, I don't know. I mean, the track itself, I Want to Be Somebody, it was the hunger in it from, I think, of the band as well. Absolutely amazing song. What a great opening track as well to that album. I think it was a single as well.
Yeah, that's
really heavy for a single, but
that's another one of their signature songs. They can never play a W.A.S.P show without playing it.
Yeah,
there's certain songs Blackie refuses to play anymore because of his new beliefs or refound beliefs. But yeah, that one for sure. That one stayed for him to play.
Oh yeah, it's great. What a great song. I think it was the thing is, I had this. There was 2 versions of this album, weren't there? And I think, didn't they release a version where "Fuck Like a Beast" was the first song?
The reissue, had that. The original version, it was cut because it was deemed to be too controversial. But the reissue, they went ahead and back in the day, I don't know if you ever bought it, but they released Animal on a single. I had it on cassette. It was just Animal, and it had a song called "Show No Mercy." It was Animal on one side, "Show No Mercy" on the other side. They released it after the album originally came out, and of course it had the saw blade coming out of his codpiece.
I mean, I had the original. I had the version with "I Want to Be Somebody" was the opening track on mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had the original version, I suppose. On LP, which I haven't got anymore. Along with any, I've got 2 albums. They're behind me. That's about it. And they recently bought one. So, but okay, mate, that was my number 3. I Want to Be Somebody. Up to number 2.
All right. My number 2, I mentioned on one of our ballad shows from Crimson Idol, the song called "The Idol." This, I mentioned it on that show. This is my all-time favorite guitar solo.
Yeah.
The late, great Bob Hewitt. He never toured with W.A.S.P. He didn't want to be a full-time member. He was mostly a session musician. He did a lot of session work for Kiss back in the day. He was almost the original Kiss guitarist before Ace Frehley. But even back then, he had your haircut. He was bald.
That ain't a haircut, mate. It's just no choice. Thanks, though.
He just didn't fit the image they were looking for, so they went with Ace. But they stayed close with Bob, and he did some session work with him through the years. But anyway, he joined W.A.S.P. as a session musician, not as a touring member. But he was absolutely amazing on guitar. The solo in this song, there's actually 2 solos. Midway through the song, he goes into this amazing solo. Then the chorus picks up again, and he goes into an even more intense solo that the song eventually fades out to. And I have just, of all the guitarists that I know and love, my all-time favorite guitar solo is by Bob Hewitt in that song, "The Idol." Just gives me chills every time I listen to it. The amount of talent that guy had, and nobody really knows him. They know his brother, Drew Hewitt, who joined Kiss. But Bob was, I guess, happy just being a session player. He played with a lot of different bands over the years. Unfortunately, died last year at 70 years old. Incredible player, and kind of a power ballad. But yeah, that song, that's my favorite song on the album. And that solo is just otherworldly.
I think I listened to that after you mentioned it, mate. It was a great solo.
For anybody that hasn't heard it and wants to listen to it, you got to hear the extended version. The version of that song they released as a single and they played on MTV was not the whole song. I think it had the first part of the solo, but did not have the second part. It ended up being a pretty long song. You got to hear the full length unedited version to get the full effect of it.
Cool. Good choice, mate. Okay. My number 2 is the title track from The Headless Children. Oh, I love this song, man. Doomy, sort of medium pace sort of song. His vocals, man, on this track are just mad. He has got such an amazing voice, and I don't know, I think some people see him as a bit of a one-trick pony with his vocals, don't they? Yeah. But definitely ain't. Yeah. Definitely not. He's got such a strong voice. I mean, I think it was after this I don't know why, because Crimson Idol was meant to be like one of the best albums, but after Headless Children, this is where I sort of veered away. Not sure why. You know, probably everything going on in my life right then, but just an amazing track. Just the standout track for me, it was on the Headless Children. But that's it, mate. My number 2. We're up to number 1.
Yeah, you mentioned his voice. A lot of the songs he had a crackly kind of character to his voice. Excuse me. But he was kind of a vocal chameleon. Actually, he could sing. I mean, it always sounded like Blackie. Don't get me wrong, but he had different characters to his voice. A lot of texture to that voice.
Yeah.
Just doesn't get the recognition he deserves as a singer.
It's weird. It's such a different voice. It still has, by the way. It's like, this is nothing like this other singer I'm going to mention his voice, but this reminds me of the character he's got is a bit like when you hear Stephen Pearcy rap.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's such a, I love Stephen Pearcy's voice as well, but some people don't get along with it, do they?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the same with Blackie. I think he's got an outstanding voice, but it's not everyone's cup of tea, is it?
He doesn't have a pretty voice like, say, a Glenn Hughes or, you know, somebody like that, but it's just it fits the music perfectly, like I said, regardless of whether doing the heavy stuff or the ballads. I can't imagine anybody else singing these songs. They're just made for him, obviously, because he wrote them. But it's just a highly underrated vocalist.
Oh, mate, well, I'm getting excited about your number 1, unless you want me to do my number 1 first.
Yeah, go ahead and do yours.
Yeah, because you're the W.A.S.P man, so. Okay, mate, my number 1, and you know what I'm like. I like a ballad, slow sort of song, and I love this song, and it's "Sleeping in the Fire" from the debut album. I'm not sure if it's evil or not, lyrically. Yeah. I'm not really sure. Was it "Taste the Love, Lucifer's Magic" or something like that? And the chorus as such, but man, it's such a what epic feel to it. I mean, their longer songs come now, but this sounds like it could be a 7 or 8 minute sort of song. That real epic sort of feel to it. It was sort of like one of my favourites when I was growing up as well, and it sort of stayed with me. But "Sleeping in the Fire," man, outstanding song. Didn't even make your list, did it? Unless it's number 1.
No, it's not number 1. I do like it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go on then, mate. You're number 1.
My number 1, back to Last Command, is Widowmaker.
Oh yeah.
That has always been my favorite W.A.S.P song. There's been a lot of songs that have nipped at its heels over the years, but nothing so far has bumped that one out of my number 1 spot.
It's a great song, man. Yeah.
I love the build up, the way it starts off slow, and then it hits this power chord, which I can't duplicate it with my. I'm not even gonna try, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It hits that power chord, and then it launches into that song, and that's another one that just gives me chills even today when I listen to it. Just very atmospheric. I don't hear that song mentioned too much. I don't know if they perform it much in concert. I think it appeared on a couple of the live albums. I don't know, but quite a slow
pace, that one as well, and it's sort of slow-ish pace to that. Lovely, brilliant song, man. Outstanding. Love that song. Absolutely love it. Well, I haven't got many honourable mentions, man, so I'm just going to run through mine first, and you can do yours. So I don't know why I like this. It's quite fun, but I like Jack Action off of Last Command.
Yeah, I do too.
What else have I got? I've just got that one. To tell you the truth, where you're trying not to be too nostalgic, I could have chose loads of ones off the first few albums. But I thought, even the ones you've been mentioning, Widowmaker, Fistful of Diamonds, I could probably call that an honourable mention easily, both of them. And I've gone for although I reckon this could easily end up if I listen to this more, and that's the Golgotha title track as well.
Yeah,
that's another honourable mention. Brilliant song. Yeah, that's all I've got, mate. But you know, absolutely amazing. I think because I had my list of 10 and then I had a few, but I probably could have chosen loads more. But no, it's great. I'm glad you actually we did it, because it's made me listen to those newer albums as well.
The W.A.S.P catalog is, like Forrest Gump said, is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Well, listen, man. I mean, I've got my obviously, I've got Spotify. That's my sort of thing I play. So maybe you give me the best recommendations for albums to put on. And then I can just put it in there.
It's kind of a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get as far as style or subject matter. I mean, it's just, he keeps you on your toes as a listener.
Yeah.
You just, like I say, you just don't know what you're going to get with him. He doesn't do the demonic stuff anymore, but back then they had the demonic, the sex driven stuff. Now it's more spiritual and political and sentimental type stuff, and that doesn't sit well with some people, but I kind of like the progression that they've made. I mean, let's be honest, at 60 something years old, it's
exactly
silly to kind of write the stuff they did when they were in their 20s.
Yeah.
Sex drive.
He probably hasn't got one anymore.
Anyway, I'll go through my list of honorable. Sleeping in the Fire is definitely one of my honorable.
Yeah.
Even though he won't play it anymore, I've got to mention Animal. I do love the song. It's lyrics aside, it's still a great song. I love that driving force behind that song. Ballads, like we talked about, he's done some great ballads. Forever Free, that you mentioned. Keep Holding On, which I mentioned in one of our ballad shows. Hold On to My Heart. My wife loves both of those songs. Damnation Angels from Hell Dorado. I don't care for this album as a whole. It was the follow-up to KFD, and it was just very, very raw sounding. I guess that was the intent, but as a whole, I didn't care for this album. But Damnation Angels, great song. Scared to Death from Still Not Black Enough. Love that one. And I did pick one from the Neon God, part 1, The Rise, Asylum #9. I do like that song pretty well, but most of the rest of those two albums don't do a lot.
Mate, brilliant. Thanks for that. So, a W.A.S.P expert, obviously, got every album.
I don't know about expert, but
no surprise there. Every album pulled out. It's brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. I might start collecting again, mate. You never know. But it'd definitely be vinyl, I think, if I had to collect now.
Yeah.
But I'd need something decent to play it on, and I can't really afford that.
Yeah.
Even if I just get them and put them on the wall or something, I don't know.
I don't have a record player anymore, but yeah, I thought about that too. I still got a lot of them old, especially Kiss albums, and
I just miss getting hold of them.
Yeah.
Just looking at them when they're on, But perhaps I wouldn't be like that anymore when I was a kid, just studying everything. I'd probably be like, don't know, cleaning the dog shit up or something while I was listening to it. That's what happens when you get older, man, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I still like to stare at them. I pull out all my old Kiss albums and I just stare at them and kind of get transported back to my childhood. It's just there's nothing like a full size LP.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that had the gatefold up.
Yeah.
These are okay, but just you don't get the full experience that you did with those LPs.
Damn right there, mate. Damn right.
We talked about it before, but I can remember going into record stores and just standing there, and whether I bought it or not, just holding those LPs and just staring at the cover and getting taken to another place.
Definitely agree with you there, mate. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for joining me again. And you're going to be back real soon anyway. We're going to come up with another show soon. So cheers, mate. And I'll see you next time.
Yep, sounds good.